Thanks, Wael, and these are all great introductions to what I'm going to show you, which is a new initiative by the Global Call for Climate Action, which is a network of around 400 organizations working together on climate change. I'm Kelly Rigg, I'm the executive director of that organization, and you know, as we've just heard, really now is the time. We have to stand up and be counted. We are running out of time. By 2015, emissions should have peaked and started to decline rapidly. But in order to really drive ambition at the national level, as Wael said, we need to be a much more powerful force. And we believe that what we really need to do is start reaching out to people who aren't already engaged in climate change. You know, there's so many people who have already spoken out, but somehow it's not enough to convince politicians. So we need to reach people who are probably being increasingly concerned about it, but don't quite know what to do or how to engage. And we think that in the next couple of years, we have a couple of really important opportunities to manifest that demand for political will. So for example, in September of 2014, Ban Ki-moon will be hosting a summit of leaders, of heads of state, and apparently also business and even civil society leaders to really talk about how we can ratchet up ambition. But then shortly after that, we have the Lima conference, and then a year later, we have the Paris conference, which is supposed to come up with a new agreement. But as David said, we can't wait until Paris to come up with that, and we can't count on them to do it. And I think we also need to look at moments that are not necessarily just political moments, but also cultural moments. As Jamie said, we need to talk to artists and poets and people who aren't following these, who don't know what NAMAs are and substas and all of that. So we want to approach climate change through a wide range of issues which people are already concerned about. If you're concerned about food security or about fresh water or about air pollution, these are all issues that have people worried about them, they're working on it, and they may not be aware to the extent that it links with climate change. So what we want to do is create a networked call to action. And by that we mean looking at all of the different entry points to a global call to action. So for example, I attended a women's summit in New York, and they came out with a declaration which is very gender-oriented about how women need to be leading for strong solutions on climate change. And they've launched this declaration and are collecting signatures on it for support. Talk to David, you know, the mayors, they've launched something called the Nantes Declaration, which is about cities stepping up action on climate change. But if you look at all of these things, each one of them gets as an individual initiative, a set number of signatures, but somehow we need to actually bring those together and make those visible as a whole. So at each of these moments on the calendar, every time there's a big event, we can show that the number of people supporting action has grown and that it's becoming a really unstoppable movement for change. And we would like to tell this story through climate heroes, because this isn't only about getting governments to do the right thing, and even not only about getting cities to do the right thing. We need to all do the right thing, and we need to all play a role, and we need to recognize that for somebody who's changed their whole community, they're a hero, they're a climate hero. And that is happening all over the world, and we need to celebrate that and make that visible. So the GCCA has a call to action, which people could sign up to, but we're a network of organizations. We don't have a huge constituency of followers on our own. We rely on our partner organizations like 350, Avaz, and Greenpeace, and there's hundreds of them. And what we want to do is try and all work together in some way to make that large number visible. So our website will be a template of sorts, and then we want to have microsites. So for example, the Women's Declaration will have its own microsite. We hope that the mayors will have their own. So we would get a number of these microsites up and running. And in addition to that, we would have individual widgets that you could download on your template. So this is an example that you could download on your website. So for example, this is something called lasthours.org, and this was just a test as we came up with this idea. It's the first microsite. So there's a progressive radio journalist in the US who got very worried about the melting permafrost and what that means. And he did a little film that was really about this Arctic time bomb. And we worked with them to create one of these microsites and to promote it, and we had some celebrity involvement. And this microsite, as you can see, there are certain elements that would all be similar. The only thing that this one doesn't have yet is the Climate Heroes gallery. That's coming next. But we got something like 5,000 signatures on that in the first couple of weeks. And that was just, and it was probably more doom and gloom messaging. I mean, that appeals to some people. Other people want a more positive storytelling approach. So we will have these different microsites that tell the story from different angles. And as I said, you know, those microsites are all, you know, it's a big deal to produce one and to get that all together. We will have limited capacity to do that all very quickly. So we will have widgets that people can download on their website. And what I should say about this is that the numbers all get counted behind the scenes somewhere. So anybody who signs this call to action, and this isn't like a GCCA logo global call, what we think is that anyone who signs one of these big global calls for action is signing a global call to action, and they should be counted. And so anyone who signs that from whichever angle they're doing it from, whichever site, whichever petition, can be counted. It goes into a database. That database would not be used by anyone or anything other than for the organizations who got those names, use the names in their own ways. But we would have a verifiable number, so we can show that it's not all the same people being counted in different ways on different sites. So the next steps is that we will complete the website. We're almost there. We will complete a few of these microsites. We will do a public launch of this. We want to launch it once it's kind of got a bit of momentum behind it, a bit up and running. And then that would be sometime in the late winter, early spring. And then have the embeddable widget for partners to use, say, by 2014. And the hopes that we can really build those numbers up over the summit. So for that first big moment over the summer, for the first big moment, which is the Ban Ki-moon summit in September, that we can start to really flex our muscles and show that there is a strong demand for more political will in this process. So what I just wanted to say at the end is that this doesn't replace mobilizing on the ground. We need boots on the ground. We need the 350s doing what the 350s do. You know, this isn't a replacement for all of that. This is really a way of just trying to make it all visible, to show that there's a unified movement, even if we all come at it from very different angles, from very different approaches, and very many different values. Thank you.
Okay.